Shout out to grandma, man. She just got all my beautiful children. So I got time to read. Shout out to grandma. Shout out to all the grandmas out there, man, that pick up the kids, man. And, whew, hey, when you got four of them like me, the house gets all quiet. It's kind of eerie, but, I do have time to read. I haven't picked this one up in a while. Now we can revisit it with some of the drop. And I want to read a little bit of insight into the real slave trade, of these Americans that are being picked up here. Remember, they just found you. So you think about entertainment right now. Who's the center of entertainment? Is it Africans, or is it that which they are calling African Americans, the indigenous people of America? I mean, everybody knows that. The center of entertainment are Negro people, the tribe of Negro people that was found here in the Western Hemisphere. The same way you are the center of entertainment now, you were the center of entertainment when they found you. You were the number one thing, man, to get you an American slave and sell an American slave in Africa and Spain and Portugal, all throughout Europe and Asia, right? Well, let's get it, man. If y'all ain't checked this out, I believe Let Us Find the Truth has this one in his library on the PDF. And it's from Jack Forbes. All right. I'm going to go right into it. Page. I mean, everything, so much is dropped in here. These are the type of chapters you're going to be looking at when you open this thing up. The Portuguese enslavement of Americans in Brazil. All right. So all this stuff is happening. It's all going down. It's all happening. I'm going to skip right to this chapter right here. Right here for you. Page 39. American slaves in Europe and Africa. American slaves in Europe and Africa. American slaves in Europe and Africa. Again, our people are there. Our people come, man. Our people are everywhere. Yeah, we were scattered to the four corners. But here's the melting pot. They didn't bring us here in the millions. They took us away in the thousands. And you'll see what I'm talking about. It was in the thousands, not the millions. But they took us from here. They took us from here. So our brothers and sisters that are in West Africa, our Igbo, everybody out there that's been fighting ever since they got on that soil in there because they ain't from there. Well, they know they Israelites. But the history in their mind, they thinking they going somewhere else. And they don't understand. They were just brought there from America. This is the old world. But let's get it. American slaves in Europe and Africa. And this is very detailed, very specific, very statistic oriented. So let's go. Now we shall examine data relating to the Americans who arrived in Europe and along the coast of West Africa, beginning in Portugal. So we're specifically examining the Americans who arrived in Europe and along the coast of West Africa. Again, our family in West Africa, in Nigeria, came from here. They are Americans. They are not indigenous to that land, which is why their tribes have been in tribal warfare with tribes that are indigenous to that land. See? It's all making sense. So let's go. Now we shall examine data related to the Americans who arrived in Europe and along the coast of West Africa, beginning in Portugal. The impact of Americans upon Portuguese life has not been studied, although Camões, Camoens, in his epic poem Lusíadas, refers to the Tristes Brazes, which is sad Brazilians arriving in Lisbon, Spain. So this particular artist, this musician, this popular musician, refers to the sad Brazilians that are arriving in Lisbon, Spain, from America. Your family. Moreover, there exists a painting from the early 1500s wherein a Portuguese artist substituted a Brazilian in a native dress for the Black King in his Adoreko dos Reis Magos. I'm going to butcher all this stuff, but I'm trying. Adoration of the Holy Kings. So it's called the Black King and Adoration of the Holy Kings. So this is a painting in the 1500s. I don't have it on. They didn't include the painting, sadly. But it's in the early 1500s wherein the Portuguese artist substituted a Brazilian in a native dress for, in native dress, not a native dress, excuse me. So a Brazilian in native dress. So this man who's in the garb of a native person of America, and he substituted this Brazilian man in this native garb for the Black King in his song that's entitled Adoration of the Holy Kings from America. Again, Columbus came here to recapture Jerusalem. And you can click that link. All right. So in 1552 or thereabouts, in 1552 or thereabouts, Lisbon had some 10,000 slaves out of a population of 100,000, including Asians, South Asians, Muslims, Black Africans, Americans, and others. Again, in 1552 or thereabout, in Lisbon, Spain, they already had about 10,000 slaves out of a population of 100,000, including Asians, South Asians. All right, so that's just you. All right, these are all Asians. You're Afro-Asiatic. All right, then cool. You're from Asia. That's you. All right, Asians, South Asians. Where we at? Okay, Muslims. Let Us Find the Truth just broke that down beautifully. How the true understanding of the definition of Muslim is to submit to a power, to submit to a promise. So, we kind of get pigeonholed with that term and we think one type of people or thing or ideology today, but in definition, that is referring to someone who is submitting to a promise. You are here protecting, right, Muslim Jerusalem, the people that are submitting to the promise of Hayya in Jerusalem. So they throw that word interchangeably, and now we're getting a different understanding of that word Muslim as well. Black Africans, Americans, and others. And shout out to Let Us Find the Truth, man, for dropping the Drop Hall of Fame. Y'all definitely check it out. Prisoner of War and the one he did right before that, The Dumb Diverses. Check out Let Us Find the Truth. On fire. I mean, for real, the brother just broke down your freedom like playing a harp, like playing a lyre, like King David playing the lyre. You know what I'm saying? That's how he broke down your freedom. So check it out. All right. A Flemish priest wrote in 1535 that todo o servicio or vieto por negro, some stuff in Spanish, but it means all service is done by captive Negroes and Muslims. All service is done by captive Negroes and Muslims. They always separated you, right? They always Negroes and Muslims. This and that. Again, we get to the etymology of these things. In 1552, a Brazilian slave was chained together with another slave trying to escape. In 1562, where we at? Okay, let's skip down a little bit. I want to get to this one piece of drive. All right. Towards the end of the 16th century, there existed in the church of Sao Tome in Lisbon a confraria, a confraternity limited to Indians in Spain, limited to Indians. In a letter of 1591, the king responded to a petition from the judges, overseers, and members of the group by granting for 3 years the right to ask for alms along the river in the Alfama and the Barrio dos escolares, provided that the right was limited to those who were very old or ill and could not support themselves. Some Americans, especially after intermarriage with Africans, probably also belonged to the confraternity of Rosario para Pretos. All right, so this stuff is happening. We're there in Spain now, intermarrying with what they're calling so-called Africans from that particular hemisphere. All right, but we are there because they took us from here to begin with. To begin with, they took us from here. And now you think you came from there. That's the hijack. All right. Now check it out. Some Americans, especially after intermarriage with Africans, probably also belong to the confraternity of Rosario para Pretos, a confraria founded by 1496. Now all this is happening after the dumb diverses, right? So this confraria is founded in 1496 to provide mutual assistance and communal life to pretos, or blacks, right? In Spain, 1496, to provide mutual assistance and communal life for what they call pretos, Pretos, blacks. This group petitioned in the interest of the community as, for example, in efforts to keep officials seeking runaway slaves from breaking into the homes of negras and pretas, Negroes and blacks, who were honest women married to linguas, or interpreters, and merintes, seamen, or Moors, seamen, merintes, Mareantes, seamen, maritime. So they just trying to protect the cool niggas, right? So they got their people from America. They've learned all this drop from these Americans. So now they're like, man, we got to do something to have they back in Spain for the ones that run away after they're sold in captivity in Spain and Portugal and Seville and Lisbon. And they run away. We want to protect them, like they might marry into our families or have interpreters or different things like that. It says many American slaves were resold from Portugal to other countries, and this trade continued for at least a century. In 1592, for example, a widower of Lisbon sold Beatrice, age 12. They're always freaking very young, right? Why? Because they killed all the grown-ups. When they say they slaughtered 300 million, 95% of y'all, that was your parents. You are the remnant of the children that survived. The children were sold into slavery, for the most part. For the most part. So this is young Beatrice. She's an American. Her age 12. She was already in Portugal, sold from America. These are the records, man. You look at it. You look at it. When you look at it, you can see this ain't play. These are records. These are documents. This is stuff that you can cite. You can go get the documentation if you want it. Of young Beatrice from America, your people that was almost made extinct, sold to Africa, sold in Spain, sold in Portugal. But let's read about Beatrice. Age 12, originally from Pernambuco, Brazil. Didn't they just take us from our mainland, South America, and then throw us up here, North America, throw us around there, take us into Spain, take us to other areas, other islands, other places? So a widower of Lisbon sold Beatrice, age 12. She was already a widower. Originally from Pernambuco, Brazil, to the Canary Islands. So she was resold from Portugal to other countries, and this trade continued for at least a century. In 1592, for example, a widower of Lisbon sold Beatrice, age 12, originally from Pernambuco, Brazil, to the Canary Islands. Many Americans were sold as slaves in Spain, as revealed by the notarial records of Seville and Valencia. What records are we reading out of when we say Colombina de Sevilla? What records are we reading about? Say, look up the records of Colombina, de Sevilla. We've got them all over the place. You got them right under you. Everything we're going back to is in Seville. The Biblioteca de Colombina in Sevilla is in Seville. We're still in Seville right here. This is separate source substantiating evidence that we're on the right track. We're just finding the same drop all over the place. How many books we got to keep bringing out, matching up our drop? A brother left me a comment today. He said, man, I like what you dropping, man. I don't really rock with the, Bible like that. And I hear y'all keep saying that y'all Israelites and that they found the Israelites here, but I don't never found no records of people really saying that these people are Israelites. But I don't really rock with the Bible. And I said, I get it, man. I mean, this has been a hell of a ride, so that's cool. I get it. Here's the thing. If you want to know that you're Israelite, you click the link and you read Columbus's writings in the Biblioteca de Colombina in Sevilla. And he says, I'm going to America to recapture Jerusalem, and Mount Zion. Then you read that you're the copper-colored races and what you look like. So you know it was you, and you know he was coming to recapture you, and he did. The powers he came with did. Whether he ever stepped foot over here or there, no matter what. The powers did recapture you. The Pope did recapture you and put you in perpetual servitude. So if you know you're the copper-colored races and you see his motto was to come over here, his mission was to come over here to recapture Jerusalem, then what copper-colored people was here fighting for Jerusalem? And could those be Israelites? Or you can just look in the Maya cliches where they actually say they come from Abraham and Jacob. And following a chief with a staff who's parting some major sea for them to cross over in their cliches. So you got the Mayans saying they're Israelites. You got your commandments in stone here. And you got Columbus saying he's coming here to recapture Jerusalem and Mount Zion in America. And I didn't give you one scripture. So you can put the Bible over there if you want to, but you're going to get that work. And you're going to know who you are. And then you can accept it or not. Someone could say, man, I'm giving you land. I'm giving you freedom. I'm giving you a promise. What, man? You got to prove it, man. You got to keep dropping more. Drop to prove it. I'm like, damn, well, you just stubborn just like the words say we are, man. A peculiar, stubborn, stiff-necked people. We can't accept good. We've been beat down too much to accept good. But we will rise. Many Americans were sold as slaves in Spain, as revealed by the notarial records of Seville and Valencia. It is not possible to be certain as to the numbers involved, since not all the slaves seem to have been properly registered. And also baptismal records are relatively scant. Moreover, many slaves are classified only as to their color. Here's where we play the color game. And for some that is lacking. The color terms used, pay attention, this is what they use in their Spanish records to classify you. That don't mean you're different or separate. It's an illusion of seclusion, but here comes the hijack. The color terms used, such as loro, means intermediate. So loro, L-O-R-O, is intermediate, brown. Negro is black or very dark. So when they said Negro, they meant people that are very dark. Okay? Blanco, light. All right. Loro Casi Negro. Loro Casi Negro is brown, almost black. So if you're Loro Casi Negro, it's like in between Loro and Negro. So you're almost dark. You know what I'm saying? But you're not hella dark. And so on. Are not diagnostic as to race because they refer to color and perceived by the authorities and not to ancestry. It is especially helpful when the place of birth is given, but otherwise it is not possible to tell whether it is given Loro, for example, is from the Americas, from the Canary Islands, or from North Africa. When you see laurel, you just know that they just very light, right? Or intermediate. Blanco is light. Laurel is intermediate. Negro is dark, or very dark. Laurel Casi Negro is brown, almost dark. Okay? So that's how you can kind of decode their system. It's like, okay, these people you're talking about are with Laurel or whatever it is. So it is especially helpful when one place is given. Otherwise, it is not possible to tell whether they're given Laurel is from Americas or Canary Islands in North Africa, from India or Spain itself. So it could be anywhere. The major exception is when an Arab or Islamic proper name accompanies the color designation. About 102 laurels were registered in Seville between 1472 and 1513. Pay attention to the numbers. Now, of course, we can't get a figure of the numbers, right? Because not everybody was registered like this. But just pay attention to the relative stuff that we're hearing. About 102 laurels, or intermediates, were registered in Seville between 1472 and 1513. Of these, some 30 can be identified further as follows. 17 were born in Spain, of whom at least one was of Islamic background. 6 were from North Africa. 3 were from the Americas. 2 identified as India, female, and Indias, the Indies, and 1 from the Marinan, or Maranoon, 1 from the Meni in Guyana, and one was from Portugal. 1 was from Azores, and 1 was the daughter of a Negra. Thus, 72 remained from unknown backgrounds, and 10% of those identified were from the Americas. Now do you understand? Overstand. This is what happened, man. That's why you don't see a bunch of slave ships all over the place. If they took us over here in the millions, you couldn't walk anywhere without seeing a damn slave ship, because that's how many slave ships there must be lying around. They destroyed all of them. They turned them all into some story, some thing. There's sketches. You've never seen it. If you've seen one, it's some type of recreation. It's like the ball Earth, right? You'll never see it. They can't show you one live feed from NASA showing your Earth spin one time. They can't give you one proper photo without giving you an altered composite. Yet you have to believe you're on a ball spinning. Same thing with these slave ships. They give you sketches, the inception, your mind, but no, they found you here, and then you came in 40 of you went over here, 20 of you went over here, you got 100 people over here. So I'm saying they took you from here in the thousands or tens of thousands, but they did not take you to here from anywhere else in the millions, which the story, that's the slave trade hoax. When we say slave trade hoax, not that there's no slave trade. You are the slave trade, but they came here, slaughtered us, and then put us on the auction blocks, in Wall Street. We was the Wall Street, but they found you here. They found the stock here. They didn't bring the stock and then put you on auction. Does that make sense? Or does it make sense that they came, found your ass, enslaved you, slaughtered you, said convert or die, and then put you on auction blocks? And then sold you, exported you as an export, because they're the ones that cornered the market on this product, because they broke down the partition in 14 whatever. That's their renaissance. That's their rebirth. Up until now, the Pope had you in perpetual servitude. That's the rebirth. The Renaissance means rebirth of who? Who has you in perpetual servitude? You are a prisoner of war. You have rights as a prisoner of war, according to their constitution and writings and all that. As a Negro, as a black, as an African American, you have no rights. You got to check out that Letters Find the Truth. You claim your indigenous Indian, you check off American Indian. You stop checking off black and African American. You get your rights back. You check off American Indian. You are a prisoner of war. Your documentation is the Dumb Diversions 1452. You now can declare to be a fugitive. You can declare asylum because you are currently a prisoner of war, and your documentation is the Dumb Diversions 1452 that says the Pope is giving the authority to the kings of Spain and Portugal to put you in the Indies into perpetual servitude and steal everything, steal your land, steal everything, and treat you like a savage. Click on the links. Now do you get it? Let's get this last part. Thus, 72 remained from unknown backgrounds, and 10% of those identified were from the Americas. It is significant that during the same period of time, Americans in the Caribbean were being referred to as Loros, as, for example, when Fernandez de Oviedo states that, says some stuff in Spanish, referring to the Bariquin. I'll read it in case anybody knows Spanish. La gente desta isla es loro, In one case above, a female slave from Guyana in 1504 was classified as de color loro, possibly a result of Portuguese-African mixture, but perhaps she was from a lighter skinned group. Later in 1524, another slave from Guyana was categorized as Negro como loro. Persons from Calcutta, India, were also registered as slaves in 1508 and 1513, but no color designations were given to them. The term Negro is, of course, very commonly used for Seville slaves in Spain. Often the individuals, so since it was such a common use for their slaves, they just put that on you. And they called their slaves Negros, and they called you Negro. You're called Negro today, right, Negro? Why is the brother calling himself, what's up, Negro? Why is that so cool? The term Negro is, of course, very commonly used for Seville slaves in Seville, Spain, where you were, where they took us. Often the individuals so categorized can be linked with a particular region or kingdom in Africa. Others, however, are not so identified and could be, in some cases, Americans of darker color. So there was a distinction being made back here in 1508 and 1513. Sometimes non-Christian personal names suggest such an origin, as with Petit Juan, a Negro sold in 1500. So our Christian names we got, make it hard. But if you got that non-Christian name, then, it can suggest your origin. But they take your name, they take your origin. So there we go. And then you see some more. It says, those Americans recorded as specifically being from Americas are as followed. Documentation. These are the Americans recorded as specifically being from the Americas are as followed, according to this particular documentation from Forbes. All right. You see all kind of name designations. Maranon, Maranon, India, Antilla, Antilla, Indio, India. You know what I'm saying? All kinds of little stuff, so you can all look into that. And let's get one more thing, right? Okay. Again, someone asked me, how do you know that the children found here, the remnant that they sold as slaves and slaughtered their parents, that, many are Israelites? And we talked about the Biblioteca de Colombina in Sevilla, the Maya cliches, other things to go outside of the Biblios to show you who you are. And let's check this out. Let's just use logic. With the Most High Creator, if Israelites are here, if this is the old world where Jerusalem is and protected, how would the Most High protect it? How would you protect it for your children's sake, right? You design a land for your children that's not too hot, not too cold. You put South America, you put Peru, you drop that P, you got Jerusalem. Jerusalem. Now, would you make it easier for people to reach you? Would you make it easier for threats to come across the ocean? Or would you make it hard for people to reach you? Your children. You put your children on an island, you put your children on their land, and you put everybody else's seeds everywhere else. And they have lots there, your children have lots here in the holy city. The holy city, right? I mean, didn't Columbus say he was coming here to recapture the holy city? Do we have to get that again before I continue? I mean, might as well. Read it. This is from the Biblioteca de Colombina, Sevilla. What does it say he came for? It says Columbus himself wrote this. This is in their records in Sevilla, Spain. We're all up in Sevilla. You were all up in Sevilla. Many of us are all up in Sevilla. This is the book, beginning of the book or collection of authoritates, sayings, opinions, and prophecies concerning the need to recover the holy city and Mount Zion, and the discovery and conversions of the islands of the Indies, and all the people and nations. For Ferdinand and Isabella, our Spanish rulers, this manuscript, commonly known as El Libro de las Profecias, the Book of Prophecies, was compiled by Christopher Columbus himself. Stop playing. So now that you understand Columbus is coming here, now that you understand he came here and ran up on you, and King James came here and ran up on you and gave you the hijack, I ask you again, if you are in the Creator's shoes and you have a heritage, a signature, an energy that you are protecting even when they're out of order, would you make it easier to reach them or harder to reach them? Here's science. Here's repeatable and observable science. I tell my people, we're going on a theory, we're surfing the wave, but I'm looking for repeatable and observable science that we can observe. Our senses can be turned on. We can observe that we are still. We can observe that everything levels out, water levels out. We can't observe water going in a ball and staying in a ball and spinning and not spreading all over the place because of a magical force that you got to believe in. That is a theory, not a law, called gravity. That's not repeatable and observable science. That's why they left it as a theory, not a law. Gravity is a theory, not a law. You base your whole model on a theory. And you're telling me I'm crazy for believing when you believe? Well, what else do you believe that's repeatable and observable science? All right. Americans crossing the Atlantic before Columbus. Now check it out. Let's go. The meeting of Native Americans and Africans, of people from two great continents of the earth, can be described in many ways. A fitting mode in which to begin is to cite a Native American story from Guyana, presented by Jan Carew, in which Nyan, an African sky spirit, along with the African earth mother, the African river mother, and Anansi, the spider trickster. All right, we already know where we're going. Met the Great Spirit. So here we go. We got a Great Spirit. Someone who's over everybody, right? Then they call it the Father, Son. And the Father, Son, and other spirit powers of the Americas. There, you got all the spirit powers, right? Now you see, you got Egypt here, you got Atlantis here. You got the hijack. This is hijack central. You know what I'm saying? The next day, all the peoples of the earth complained to Father Sun, and for the first time, the ebony people, who were neighbors of Tihona, made themselves heard. The Great Spirit invited Nyan, the anthracite-colored sky god, to share his domains. They, the African spirits, agreed on condition that the Great Spirit, in turn, shared the distant kingdoms of earth and sky that Nyan ruled. Pia, P-I-A, an American child of the sun and of Tahona. All right, flow with it. We're just surfing away. The midst woman became a brother to Anansi, the Spider-Man. Whoa, Spider-Man. And both agreed to live among human beings. Thus, the spirit powers of the black Africans are said to have established a close cooperative relationship with the spirit powers of the Americas. The hijacks here connected with the hijacks there. This same cooperation and reciprocal relationship can also be seen in Brazil, where the two Binamba and the Guarani candomblés exist side by side with those of Congo, Angola, and Negro orientation, and where the Native American and African spiritual powers are called upon for assistance in various contexts. The dimensions of African American contact can also be seen in a painting by the Dutch artist Jan Steen in 1645. So look this up. I'll try to see that actually. Hold up. Let me finish this out. In which the making of a marriage contract between the Netherlands area is depicted. The future bridegroom is of African ancestry, while the future bridegroom is of African ancestry, while a man of American race is an active onlooker on the right-hand side of the scene. The bride is a European Dutch background. This is a spiritual as well as secular context. The American and African peoples have interacted with each other. Let me get that back. So there's a painting by Jan Steen in 1645 in which the making of a marriage contract. Now, who's the contract with? Pay attention. In the Netherlands area is depicted. The future bridegroom is of African ancestry, while a man of American race is an active onlooker on the right-hand side of the scene. So he's just kind of like the best man looking on, like, man, you about to marry into something. And they got this American guy there, but he's not the one making the contract. Check it out. The bride is of a European Dutch background. All right, you look into it. Thus, in spiritual as well as secular texts, the American and African peoples have interacted with each other in a variety of settings and situations. These interactions may well have begun in very ancient times. J.A. Rogers, Leo Weiner, Iva Van Sertima, and others have cited evidence, including the Olmec stoneheads of Mexico, pointing towards earlier contacts between American and African cultures. I do not propose here to explore the earlier archaeological evidence, which in essence requires a separate study, but instead I will cite briefly some tantalizing data which suggests contacts in both directions. It is not well known that the Atlantic Ocean contains a series of powerful rivers or currents. Listen up. Would the Most High make it easier to reach his people or harder to reach his people? It's very simple. You're his people. I want to prove to you that you're his people without you ever even hearing about a Bible. So I'm talking about the great energy here, right? With the great energy in which you are a direct product of, a direct transfer of, you are a part of. With your great energy, all right, you're the manifestation here of this great energy. Would this energy make it easier to find you and destroy you and jam you up, or harder to jam you up? Right? You love your child. You will make it very hard to jam your child up. You will make it easier to jam everybody else up, but hard to jam you up. But let's see what repeatable and observable science says. We'll get to it. So it is not well known that the Atlantic Ocean contains a series of powerful currents and rivers which can facilitate the movement of floating objects from the Americas to Europe and Africa, as well as from the latter to the Americas. So there's a stream that can facilitate your movement going back and forth, right? We know that stream is called the Gulf Stream. Let's go. In the North Atlantic, the most prominent current is that of the Gulf Stream, which swings through the Caribbean and then makes in a northeasterly direction from Florida to the Great Banks off of Terra Nova or Newfoundland, that's America, turning from eastwards towards the British Isles and the Bay of Biscay. This current has carried debris from Jamaica and the Caribbean to Hebrides and Orkneys of Scotland, so all the way into the UK. So it's carried debris from Jamaica to the UK on its own. So if it's carrying debris, that means no one is steering it, right? So the Gulf Stream that we're talking about can easily take you to that world. Let's just talk about, this is the old world, that's the new world. So we can get to this new world. I say that because there's lots of geological evidence coming out right now, and we're showing it. Click on the videos, click on the links, that America came out of the primordial waters first. This is the old world, which is why everything's older here. The pyramids, everything's older here. That's why them there in Kemet learned from the master teachers here. And that's what is on their walls. That's what's coming out as Maya. Even their word for Maya in Egypt is water. People that came over the water. These people have been there. This is Atlantis, what I'm saying. This is our relation. We are all the indigenous people here. We were put on a slave vibration, and they put pyramids and separated us with this illusion of seclusion. So you call yourself Commission, or you call yourself this, or you call yourself this. You are the indigenous people here. And you were separated by a slave vibration. And when Atlantis was sunk, then it was reset up, it was reorchestrated, and that's all in the Emerald tablets of when it was set up in the 18th dynasty with the 6th king in what we call Kemet now, in the new world. But in the old world, it was already rocking for them 17 dynasties right here. And that's when you research the Grand Canyon and all throughout Illinois, all that area. Grand Canyon through Illinois and south was all Egypt. Then you got your four corners, which you got Judea and, all that. Judah, Yudah. You got the kingdom of there. That's there. But then you got Jerusalem in Peru. This ain't crazy. So would the Most High make it easier to find you or harder to find you? Let's go. All right. So debris can be carried from Jamaica to the UK, Scotland. All right. Moreover, John Meriden tells us that valuable hardwood was commonly washed ashore along the coast of Ireland and Wales. This timber from the ocean, born from the Gulf Stream, really came from the rivers of Mexico. Timber is just coming up from Mexico via the Gulf Stream. So it looks like it's very easy for us to search out over there. We can just hop a ride on the Gulf Stream and glide our way up into the old world. But let's see our repeatable and observable science of how the Most High has created his waters and where he has orchestrated and put his people by design. And you tell me you want to leave here and go somewhere else when he designed this place to fortify you. Let's go. Moreover, John Meriden tells us that valuable hardwood was commonly washed ashore along the coast of Ireland and Wales. This timber from the ocean, born from the Gulf Stream, really came from the rivers of Mexico. Meriden, a student of transatlantic navigation by small vessels, also states that, listen, the first success of crossing the Atlantic by one man could only come from the American side. Again, the first success of crossing the Atlantic by one man could only come from the American side, because the crossing is much less difficult in that direction. The first success of crossing the Atlantic by one man could only come from the American side, because the crossing is much less difficult in that direction. A French writer has said justly, in all probability, that if America had been the old world, its inhabitants would have discovered Europe long before we did, in fact, discover America. Again, a French writer has said justly, in all probability, that if America had been the old world, its inhabitants would have discovered Europe long before we did, in fact, discover America. Read it. And read it. Pause it. Read the next paragraph too while you do that. Read all that. So you know when you research this documentation, when you stop playing, asking me how, man, I rock with all y'all saying, man, but you know, how I hear everybody say that they're Israelites in America. That sounds absurd. You know who else says it sounds absurd, right? You know who else tells you to go back to Africa, right? So who are you in agreement with? When you find yourself in agreement with your enemy about the solution for your people, those are dangerous and murky waters. The first success of crossing the Atlantic by one man could only come from the American side because the crossing is much less difficult in that direction. A French writer has said justly, in all probability, that if America had been the old world, I told you this is the old world. They're dropping it all day long on you now. You're from the old world. You're from the oldest people on this earth. You're recognized as the oldest people on this earth. You recognize as the indigenous, which means you are Hea's children by birthright, and the remnant by birthright. And this is your order, your earth by birthright. And Columbus said he came to recapture it, the holy city of Mount Zion. You fought and you died, but you never quit. You fought, you died, but you never quit, or there wouldn't be no remnant. Let's go. A French writer has said justly, in all probability, that if America had been the old world, its inhabitants would have discovered Europe long before we did, in fact, discover America. This is because of the prevailing winds from the west, as well as the currents. One man, says Marion, one can, said Marion, sail in a straight line from Boston via Newfoundland to Ireland or Cornwall with almost the certainty of fair winds. The other direction, listen up, the other direction coming from Africa, coming from Europe or Asia, coming from the new world to get here to the old world requires twice the distance, thrice the time, and 4 times the sweat. If America had been the old world, its inhabitants would have discovered Europe long before we did, in fact, discover America. This is because the prevailing winds, Hea's prevailing winds from the west, as well as Hea's currents. One can, says Marion, sail in a straight line from Boston via Newfoundland to Ireland or Cornwall with almost certainty of fair wind. So you can leave this place and Gulf Stream it up with certainty of fair winds. You have a nice, fun little travel going to Africa from here. Oh, but you want to take some slaves from Africa? You want to take millions and hundreds of millions in slaves from Africa? Well, if you decide that as your cost-effective strategy, if you decide to take slaves from Africa in the hundreds of millions as your cost-effective slave trade strategy, here's what you inherit. Twice the distance. All right, you got to travel twice the distance to get back. You go nice glide with fair winds up the Gulf Stream to get to Africa. To get from Africa back here, where they supposedly took us, you got to go twice the distance. Now, is that economical? Now, these are some economical smart folk, right? Is that a smart business plan, going twice the distance? What else? Thrice the time? It takes 3 times the time? Yo, your illusion better be exploding right now. If the documentation is saying it takes thrice the time, All right? Twice the distance. Twice the distance. Thrice the time. And 4 times the sweat. And 4 times the sweat. Is that economical, man? Labor efficient? Would you do that business plan? Would you go a direction that takes, excuse me, twice the distance, 3 times the time, and 4 times the sweat? Or would you take them copper color races you're finding in the hundreds of millions and just enslave them on their own land, just mix them up a little bit? And take some of them and show them off in Europe, and show them off in Africa, and in Portugal, and in Lisbon, and in Sevilla. Just show off your little tokens. That's why you only see 40. This person had 40 of them. This person had 10 of them. They got 90 over here. They just took you in little bundles. They did not take you in the hundreds of millions from Africa. Because if they did, they know it takes twice the distance, thrice the time, and 4 times the sweat. Body bag for the illusion. Stay up, suit up, choose up. Love all y'all.